All right. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session, which we're calling Mastering the Digital Handshake, a guide to networking and growth mindset. So my name is Chris, and I'm super excited to be introducing our webinar tonight that will be presented by Anna Miller, who is a career coach who helps career changers from all walks of life to land their first job in tech or second. She runs a 12-week career launch program, which I'm sure she'll be letting you know more about. And she also runs the 0 to 3 Club, which is actually how I found out about Anna. And it's a community for early career folks in tech. And she also has a very active and very helpful LinkedIn page that if you don't already follow, you totally should. And I'm super thrilled that she can join us tonight to give us some insights and some of the tips and tricks that she's gained over the years coaching her clients. So this session, as usual, is especially crafted for early career software engineers and tech enthusiasts that are looking to gain insights into mastering the digital networking game and to nurture a growth mindset. And tonight we're hosted by TechTank, which is the organization that I'm part of. And we're an active group of devs, designers, PMs, and other techies that range from mostly junior to early career professionals into seniors with over 10 years of experience. So we host job-related workshops and sessions like these, as well as study sessions and in-person social events in Toronto. So if you're interested in joining, we do have a Slack group, and I will plug the link in right now. Right here. And at the end of our presentation, we'll reserve some time to do some casual networking, and we can create some breakout rooms as needed. And I think in the chat, it looks like Sammy plugged in the calendar and Nonso plugged in a Google Sheets that you can share your LinkedIn. So that'll be actually quite efficient, and we can share it again. So without further ado, I'm just gonna bring Can you all see me and Anna? Okay, perfect. So hello, Anna. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Chris. So today, what we're going to do is go through networking and talking about how mindset and networking work together. But if you give me 1 second, I'm just going to do something. Awesome. So that should help. I had a very noisy air conditioner. So I'm going to share my screen and then go through a deck that basically will help you understand what we mean when we're talking about networking. If you have any questions during the presentation, please drop them in the chat. If you really have a burning question, raise your hand and we can address it right there. But I'd love to hear what you guys have been doing for your own networking, if you've used it, what you think about it, anything like that. So I work with career changers from all walks of life, and I help them use networking for their job search. So especially when you're switching careers to a new field like tech, the pace of everything is much faster and the context is very different than, wherever you're coming from. And when you're moving into a new career in tech, there's so much volume in people applying, it really gets overwhelming. So what we're going to talk about today is how to use conversations on LinkedIn and other platforms through DMs in order to stand out, to get noticed, and really get interviews and break into a career in tech. So one thing that I want to start with is not waiting for the right people to find you. So you might have the best experience and be a great fit and, really resonate with something that you see, like a job posting or an opportunity. But if someone doesn't find the time or isn't available to kind of see that you are a match, then they'll never get to speak to you. So what you're going to do is help them help you by reaching out to them as well and not relying on others to reach out to you only, but kind of doing it both ways. So what you're doing when you're networking is you're essentially creating a funnel. So when we're talking about the job search, there's a lot of different steps that goes into the job search. We start with applications, but not only to send an application and check a box, we do that for research. Once we're applying, we understand what companies are hiring. Once we understand what companies are hiring, we want to reach out to those companies and start talking to people at those companies, right? Because companies are just groups of people. So what we're going to talk about today is that part in the funnel that's about reaching out to people, why it's so hard, and how to make it easier. So maybe you've heard, people talk about it. I've definitely posted a lot about it. Like direct messaging on LinkedIn is one of the best ways to get impactful conversations, to start getting your foot in the door, to reach out, to kind of connect with people and show them that you're interested, and then move that into interviews if there's a fit. So what you're doing by reaching out is you're getting information, visibility, and connection. And that essentially means that people see you and they can decide if you're a good fit for something, and then you can get information, decide if you want to even pursue this opportunity. So in terms of networking, if you're networking, your visibility is very low. So these numbers are my own guesstimates, but essentially, if you're just cold applying and browsing LinkedIn and not being very visible to others by posting and DMing and stuff, there's no real eyes on your profile. Like the volume of applications is just too high. People can't possibly see you if you're applying even on the 5th or the 10th day of the job application. It has nothing to do with you. It's simply the state of the market right now. There's a lot of volume. So what happens when you cold apply and then you message a couple of people? Okay, let's say you cold apply and then you message 5 people and 1 person responds. That person maybe knows something about this job opportunity. You have a conversation, and then they call out your application to the recruiter and you get a screening call. Now, this might not have happened if you didn't reach out and get your application flagged. Why? Again, because of the volume of applicants. Unless you apply literally within the first couple of days, it might be very hard to get seen. And of course, when you have the interview, you have ultimate visibility. So within the job search funnel, there is another funnel just around the networking. So the DM conversation is essentially a way to start connecting with someone to get information. And I mean, I know it sounds very kind of, maybe robotic, but essentially you want to do this with a lot of different people in order to see who's available to help you. And you can customize the conversations, which we'll talk about, in order to make it more human and to create actual connections. But in the beginning, it is actually robotic because it is a numbers game in a sense. So you're not targeting everyone, you're targeting certain people at certain companies, and then you're targeting a certain volume of those people. And why this is important is because you don't know who's online, who's available, who's interested. If 1 person out of 10 is available and wanting to help someone, you don't know who that is because there's no real system for that. There's a system for mentoring, there's a system for like purchasing things, but there's no real system around like, I want to help you get a job at my company, right? It's kind of more vague and up in the air. So when you contact someone, you want to find out, are they available? And if they reply in a friendly manner, then you have a nice conversation just like you would in person. The mindset piece might come up there when you do start to have these conversations. You might start to think, what do we talk about? Well, the answer is it's your job search. So talk about things relevant to your job search. However, if you find that there are commonalities between you two, if you're in the same city, you like certain things, you went same college, there's plenty of things you could bring up. But at a baseline level, you just want to ask about the job, their experience, make it 50% about them to make sure that you're showing up as someone who's attentive and not just all about yourself. So you're making your job search a priority, but you're creating conversation that is more human and actually connecting with them. So in terms of volume, this is important because if you're reaching out to only like 1 or 3 people, you may not hear back from them. And then you may be very frustrated and think it doesn't work. That's because it doesn't work with low volume. It only works with low volume if you really have no investment and you don't really care, and it doesn't matter. The thing is, if you're doing this in the first place, it does matter, right? So you want to reach out to at least 5 or 10 people. If you aim for 10, you can definitely find 5, and then maybe you'll find a couple more in order to see who's available. So maybe 5 out of 10 people are friendly and reply, and 1 is actually on the team that is hiring. That is great. Now, they can not only give you a referral, they can give you actual information about that role. That's like the key here. So you want to talk to people who can give you information about the role. If they can't give you that, they can give you other information. And you have conversations that basically combine you asking about the information about the role, their experience, and sharing your own background. So just like you do in real life, you share a little bit about yourself, you ask something about someone else, you share a common story that you both maybe heard. You do the same thing essentially, but the topic is really about the company, the goal for the role, something about like that you can both find interesting, which in this case is the company, essentially. So in terms of the concept, like the process, when you apply, you find different companies. And let's say you apply to 20 companies and you pick out 5. And these are companies that you like the job description, are paying well, like you think that they would be a good match. So then you find people and you message a couple of people per company. And these are not just recruiters, these are people in your target role. And what that means is they are willing to and can share information about what it's like to work there. Now, recruiters are super busy. They're much less likely to reply, hiring managers as well. You don't want to exclude them, but they don't get to be the only people you message because they're not the only people with information. And in fact, you can learn a lot more about the company by messaging, the engineers than, reaching out to one recruiter. So keep that in mind when you're setting up your outreach. So this is kind of more details about that. You can also look at connections, like you can reach out to first connections, see if they can help you in any way, even if they don't know any open roles, maybe they know referrals or any introductions. Second and third connections are helpful. When you're reaching out to new people, you can see maybe you have some people in common. So don't forget kind of that LinkedIn is one of the biggest professional social network out there. So use the information that is available and use it to your advantage and start conversations mentioning some of the connections you might have. So just to mention a little more about like what might happen in the experience of an outreach campaign is people might not see messages. People might not be online. They may not be on LinkedIn at all. So if you're not getting responses, you just increase your volume. You really don't want to overthink it in terms of mindset. It has nothing to do with you. As long as your messages are respectful and short, it's really about the volume and the number of people versus like, what did I do? So it's really important to not overthinking and just kind of do it and then evaluate what's my response rate and how do I continue in conversation. So quantity does matter, but you want to start with quality, the companies themselves, and then amount of people per company. Some companies can have thousands of employees. So you obviously want to, start with maybe a batch of 10, and then depending on who responds, do another batch of people. So you can definitely manage the quantities based on if a company has a ton of employees or very little, but always increase your volume if you're not hearing back. If you still don't hear back, review your messages. There's definitely templates you can use that I offer clients, and I'm happy to share with you here as well, that basically help you can start the conversation, and then there's other ways you can continue it. So in terms of structure, you want to start with an intro note. So an intro note, essentially a first introduction, is literally like waving hi to someone on the street when you're walking towards each other. It's like, hey, I'm here. So you don't want to like tell them your life story or throw your resume, portfolio, like all this information at them. You just literally want to say like, hello. So there's different ways of doing that. But the most important thing is you want to use a note, because then you can message with them. In LinkedIn, if you send an email, they have to, see it, and then maybe they respond with a note. They can accept it, not respond, and you can still message them. So sending a connection request with a note is one of the best ways to start a conversation on LinkedIn. So if you haven't tried that, this would be recommended. So this is kind of more information about how you can do that, and happy to share this with the group after as well. Here's an example of what you would put in an intro note. You can do shorter, or you can definitely use shorter. This is more of like the lengthier version, but basically it's just saying hello and seeing if they respond. You can even use the same one for almost every person in your target role. So the same one for all designers, developers, whatever. So what happens when you send them the intro note and they accept, and then they say something? Okay, they give you information. So let's say they say, happy to connect. A lot of clients and in general, career changes tell me, okay, what do I do? Like, they literally answered me with a statement. Yes, people will answer in statements. Like, it's not their job to like continue the conversation. You have a job search that you're on, so you have a goal. Your goal is to get information. So if someone gives you a statement, literally thank them, acknowledge their statement, and ask a question. So in this case, someone said that they would share their profile with the hiring manager. So you acknowledge what they said, and then you ask a question to follow up to see if you can get a more information. And then you take the conversation from there and kind of continue as it needs to go. So here's some examples of intro notes that are very quick and short. But this is just to show you that you can send an intro note that literally says, hey, happy to connect. Like that, it can be fine too. The point is for someone to respond. So in a job search, you really want to end your intro note on a question with the gratitude right after, or something like very similar. So basically, having something like this is more relevant for job seekers. So you want to say something like, are you open? Are you open to a short chat? Are you open to a conversation? Are you available? You don't want to presume. I know everyone says like, oh no, I'm not like presuming, but a lot of times by default, the way people structure their phrases presumes that someone is available, just because that's kind of what they're used to in typing and emails and stuff like that. A better way to do that is using the phrase, are you open? Are you available? So this is a more friendly and a more open statement. And it tells someone that you're not presuming and you are actually asking. It's essentially a way to gain consent. And then once you gain consent, then you obviously have the conversation. So it's a lot better in terms of like the unconscious way to ask things. So this person I did not know at all, and they were like, sure, let's talk. So, some people can surprise you and respond right away with like, absolutely, sounds great. Sometimes they don't respond at all. So not your no or you hear anything about you. It's just if person's available or not. Here's another couple examples. These are conversations from that a client shared with me that he's been doing some networking. So his intro note is basically, are you open to talking? I'd like to learn more about the company. Then she responded like this, and this is how I recommended like he could respond. So essentially, you always want to be looking for more information. Don't feel like you're annoying. The one thing that I also hear from people is like, I don't know what to say and I feel like I'm annoying. You know what? It's your job search. You can be a little annoying. It's fine. Just be respectful, which obviously most people are. If you're respectfully annoying, it's okay. Just don't contact someone every day. And the most annoying thing is, I know you guys want to do that, but I don't know. Some people think it's okay to put like your name and a question mark. It's a really bad sales tactic. So don't do that. What you want to do is follow up with a thoughtful response and a thoughtful question. If you don't know what to ask, I don't know, ask about, how they ended up in whatever job they were at. Like, look at their profile, use context clues. So build your conversation using the information around you, which means their profile and what they literally just shared. So this person, William, was one of the most like helpful people that my client could have thought of. Like, he gave him so much information that like I wouldn't even think like someone would want to do for someone they just met online, right? But he did, because he's just that kind of person, which is great. So William shared the name of 3 recruiters that Aiden can go in contact. So he did that. And then maybe he gets more information from the recruiters. But basically, some people are very, very helpful, and you don't really need to do too much to continue the conversation, but sometimes you really do need to put in some effort to lead it. Let's see, this is another example of a client networking. So one thing that I always recommend is to have a Calendly link, so that if someone's up for a call, you just kind of send them a link and be prepared. So that's a little easier. Sometimes they're like, I can answer your questions, we can get on a call later, things like that. You can always follow up with specific questions and then invite them on a call later. That's up to you. But you definitely want to lead the conversation with something relevant based on what they just said. So in terms of mindset, what that shows the person you're speaking with is that you're attentive and that you're really invested and interested in the conversation, and that's all that anyone can ask for. So here's another couple of examples of reaching out to different people. Like if I reached out to an ex-coworker for roles, this might look like that. If I wanted to check in with someone I knew, like a first connection, but I hadn't talked to in a while, I'd reach out to them, something like this. Honestly, for example, this one with Brendan, I did not know how I knew him. We were first connections. I sent him this message and he replied, and we had a great phone call, and he was just so sweet and like so helpful. You never know when people are available, but he could have just not been around, right? So it's not always what you're messaging, it's more about if the right person sees it. So here's kind of the summary of what a hypothetical conversation would look like. A lot of times the conversation, people feel stuck in the conversation right in the beginning. Okay, so let's say I send this message and I get this back. You want to be prepared with what you want to know about the role. So you want to read the job description, not like, browse it and pretend like you don't know what it means. Like literally read bullet by bullet. Be like, does this make sense? And if there's anything that you want to clear up, you can ask about it. If there's anything that you want to mention, you can ask about it. And what's really cool about asking about the job description is it can lead into referrals. So if you're not sure how to lead a conversation into referral, this is essentially the way you would do that. You ask about something in the job and then you connect it back with you. So essentially, you could see how you're leading the conversation here. So it's like building up to the point where you want to ask for something and it makes sense. Like it kind of has to flow, essentially. So that's kind of it. So basically, don't be afraid to reach out. The worst that could happen is people don't respond, and that's not that bad. That means they're not around. And the best that could happen is you have a lot of new friends, connections, and referrals and interviews. So I'd love to have a conversation with all of you here and see what questions you might have. Feel free to unmute yourself if you like. Oh, thanks, Har.
That was amazing. I mean, there were so many gem like pieces of information. I think that were I love that you had like, I think you said, for example, reach out to at least 10 people per company. Like a lot of your information was very to the point. And yeah, so yeah, folks, please feel free to add any questions on here. Maybe we're all just like shocked from that amazing presentation. But I think, I think maybe one of the things like I'm personally curious about, and maybe, others can chime in as well, but can you talk a little bit more about how do you lead a conversation with someone where you're asking for, you talked about making sure the conversation is about 50% about them. How do you kind of find that balance to like really lead kind of that human conversation, especially if you, for example, consider yourself as, someone who's not maybe a natural conversationist or things like that?
Yeah, so how you do that is you make sure in almost everything that you say something about yourself, and you ask something about them, or say something about them. It could be a question, compliment, remark, something that has to do with not you, or related to you, but not entirely about you. So let's say, okay, so in live person, like right now, it's a lot easier. There's a lot more you can comment on, right? So if we're starting a conversation, the first like couple of minute, like the first minute, which is kind of like the intro note back and forth, you can comment on my shirt, you can comment on my appearance, you can comment on, how I like, if I look sad, happy, tired, youthful, whatever. You can comment on something that you see. So how that translates to LinkedIn is the professional realm. So you take a look at their profile. Yeah, that's great. Whatever, like, yeah. I mean, maybe someone has a photo of themselves with something cool you can comment on. They don't, if it's very generic. Look at their profile. You can literally, comment on a fact. Let's say you saw I was doing something for 3 years. On my profile, would be like, wow, you've been doing this for 3 years. How is it going? Do you like it? Do you, how do you feel about it? And then you can add follow up with, in my own profession, I've been teaching for 10 years and it's been way too long to do one thing. You basically find basic facts that are on their profile in posts, whatever it is that they shared, and mirror it back to them with extra emotion, and then add something about yourself that's relatable. I mean, we do this in real life, back to back, in real life conversation all the time. But online, it's a little less natural because it's a little more async. So there's more lag, there's less feedback. We kind of have to put more effort into like, what do I do? So at the beginning, it will be very weird. And I did not learn all of this like overnight. It took me a few months, but I basically teach this to clients so that they can learn that in like a week or two. But I mean, that's basically the process. You say, thank you for sharing. I hear that you said X, Y, Z. You basically mirror whatever they said. And then you have a question or a comment or whatever it is appropriate to the conversation. Yeah, so Ilana, that's a great way to start conversation. You have conversation started through a visual way. And since we're on Zoom, you can use your background. I mean, I comment on cool things in people's backgrounds all the time. So that's great. So you can essentially use the background. In this case is the LinkedIn profile. Check out their posts, see if they have a portfolio. Like you can give a compliment on anything. You could literally be like, wow, 3 years at a company, good for you. and their response will tell you how they feel about it, so yeah, that's awesome. Thank you everyone for sharing kind of what you do and what you've seen yeah.
I think Lisa, did you have a question? I saw your hand that was raised.
Yeah, I didn't know really what the protocol was, but I was gonna say I like how you validate that it's a numbers game, and I wondered if you could talk more about that. I've heard people say, well, once you get to 500 connections on LinkedIn, then you'll start getting all sorts of recruiters, reaching out to you. What do you feel about this?
Oh, I don't have like the stats on that, etc. But in terms of a numbers game, it's not really the connection amounts. The connection amounts happen naturally when you reach out to people. The numbers game is if you contact 10 people, the average response rate is 10 to 20%, right? So if out of 10 people, 1 to 2 people reply, you have a 10 to 20% chance of getting information. You want to increase your chances to 50%, contact more people, right? So 10 people is good. The thing is, sometimes you contact 10 people and 5 people reply. But the thing is, when you do networking in this way, when you have a target in terms of a company and people at the company, and then have a certain number of people you reach out to at every company, and you can do this in batches. For example, you do a round of 5, and next week you don't get responses, whatever, a couple of days, you do another round of 5, or you could do rounds of 10 or even 20. It really matters on how many people you want to reach out to. Every time people connect with you, a lot of times people connect and don't respond. That's another topic. There's ways to start conversation there. But every time people connect with you, that's like an additional connection. So like you're more seen in the ecosystem. But in terms of the numbers of connections themselves, that naturally boosts you just because of how LinkedIn works. The numbers are really about, yeah, thank you, Sammy, for sharing that. I mean, it's not like directly correlated all the time, but it definitely helps, definitely accelerates things. So yeah, let's say you reach out to 50 people today and 10 respond. That gives you a much higher chance of getting noticed, getting interviews, getting information, because before that, your chances are 0. So,
I think
you should go
Ilana,
next.
sorry, if I didn't pronounce your name correctly, Ilana.
Hey, it's Ilana, but that's actually my sister. I'm on her computer right now. So I'm Shoshana. And I had 2 questions actually. So the first one is just, okay, Sammy. Okay, so the first one is just that, you mentioned that you do a cold apply, but then you reach out to a bunch of people from that company. Is there a great way to find out who works in a company at what role? Because on LinkedIn, it's like you're not allowed to see the people there. And so I've taken to Googling the employee list, and then
you
it's out of date and it's kind of
all
terrible.
there,
Is there a better
actually.
way?
Yeah, it's all
would you be able to show how to find it? Because it just says I'm not eligible to see who's there, and then it will say where people are working from, but I can't actually find a list of people.
Yeah, I'll take 2 seconds and show you. 1 second. I'll load it up and I'll show you. That's one of the things I train people on all the time. If you're new to LinkedIn, there's a lot of basic tooling that is really hard to find as someone who doesn't use LinkedIn very often. So I definitely help people figure that out. So give me a company. I don't know. Do you have a company in mind?
What was that one that just hosted that brain station thing 3 weeks ago? Kodak? No,
Conrad.
Yeah, Conrad.
I think it starts with a K.
Yeah.
So I have LinkedIn Premium. I have on top of LinkedIn Premium, I have not a recruiter version, but I pay for LinkedIn. But everyone has access to this. So you go to the company page, you go to people, and you start searching. You type in the name, employee title, whatever, and you start looking at people. when you do, let's say you want to find engineers here, you put engineer. Okay, great. You have 100 people that are supposedly engineers. Maybe let's look at this one first. Great, she's fine. She's in Costa Rica. She has a couple postings. Okay, great. All you need to know is that they work there, and that what you do is more, connect, add note, and send. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was just another place that they put like people you may know, like your network suggestions. I didn't
No,
realize
it's
those were the result
employees.
of the search. Like it was so unintuitive to me.
Exactly.
So thank you for
Mhm.
that.
Yeah,
My other
absolutely.
question was just you mentioned, oh, sorry. Did you?
That's it.
So yeah, you mentioned, and I was actually going to ask that, like a lot of times you'll send out the connection with the note being like, oh, hey, would you be open to having a chat with me about, have questions? And then they'll just like accept your request, but never actually answer the message.
Yep.
Do I have like a follow-up move there, or
Yes.
is it just like, okay, I can see their network?
So one, you can see their network. Two, I would suggest 2 follow-ups. The first one would be like a day or 2 after. Literally, the moment you see they accepted your connection, you literally say, thank you for accepting my connection. Are you open to continuing the conversation? Would love to learn from you, or whatever is relevant to the situation.
Okay.
What do you notice
Thank
in a lot of the things, you're welcome, that I've been saying? I literally reiterate facts. These facts drive the conversation, and then I add something new to it in order to move it towards information that I want to know.
Mhm.
So if you don't know what to say, just say thank you for sharing, and then state a fact.
Thank you for sharing.
Exactly. So hopefully that will help.
Yeah, I think thank you so much for that. I think next it was Nicholas,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was Brandon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I think they may have Nicholas maybe popped in the question in the
Sure.
chat, looks like.
Nicholas says, is taking notes about someone's profile any better than just browsing it while chatting? Is one more natural than the other? It really depends on who you are as a person and how you process information, how used you are to reading profiles, how much tech terms you know. It has to depend on who you are in your context. For me, I can browse a profile and have a conversation in seconds. That has taken me a couple of years to learn, just because I have been in the tech world for 10 years. I understand the tech terms. I can quickly glance and know like, oh, they do X, Y, Z, and then I can come up with questions. I don't have to deeply know anything to ask questions about it. I just like probe a little bit and then pivot the conversation based on the answer. So just like we do with real life conversations. If you have a hard time like understanding the information and taking notes is helpful. If you're new to tech especially, this will help you learn what to look for. And if you have a connection call with someone, if you want to do like a notes on them, that can help you drive the conversation, especially with a couple of questions prepared. So the notes might look like 3 years at Stripe, 5 years at Coinbase, went from new engineer to software engineer in 5 years. I don't know, attended Washington University. So you can definitely do like a short description of the person for yourself. It's really up to you. And then you want to craft questions about how they feel about the company, what they like about the role, if they would recommend working there or not, and then if they know anything about the open role, basically. Does that answer your question?
Awesome. And then I think we can hear from Brandon.
Hi, thank you, Anna, for that lovely presentation. I guess one of my question is when it comes to like networking and connecting with different people on LinkedIn, and I've come across some red flags while I was doing things. Some of the things from other job seekers while I'm the one job seeking. Like I even have that open to work flag, and then I got pinged by another person that I have no complete relation to. Like I never met them at any in real life event or other networking events, and they just start connecting me for some unknown reason. Or it could be one of the recruiters I reached out to just comes back and asks me to do something that's questionable. At one point, would you have to say, okay, I'm gonna have to stop, literally block this person, and hope to never hear from this again?
Anytime you feel uncomfortable,
Okay.
you don't have to wait. If they do anything that is misaligned with any of your normal human values or expectations, you can definitely block them. If you feel like maybe they said something strange, you can definitely be like, what do you mean? Or like, I'm sorry, like, what is that? What are you talking about? But if they say something that's clearly like weird, or you're sensing it's like a recruiter scam or some kind of thing like that, totally block them. Like, I don't think twice about blocking people if I don't want to be in contact with them. Like,
Yeah.
there's lots of opportunities out there. This is not gonna block you from the opportunities.
Yeah, some of them just sounds too good to be true, or others just, yeah, they just start ringing alarm bells in my head.
Yeah, just test them. Be like, hey, can I speak to a coworker? Can you send me a link to someone you know? Like very basic things that no everyone would be like, oh yeah, here you go. Might be hard for them. So yeah.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Renate?
Hi, Anna.
Hey, nice to see you.
Nice to see you again. I had two questions, I guess. So one question is, because one of it is I'm sort of taking a break this summer because I'm just tired. I've got my kids and they're at home, and so I just don't have time. So come September or in the fall is when I want to job search more. So what is your maybe, I guess, recommendation and things I can do in the interim? Because I don't have time, or I don't have time and energy right now to do it, but maybe there's stuff I could do in the interim before I am ready.
I mean, at a minimum, you could just start following companies and people. That requires no engagement.
Okay.
At a maximum, you could reach out to people asking for coffee chats and have like 2 or 3 a week.
Okay, that was a question. And I had one more question. So the other question, so I did kind of network. I did get a third interview with one company, but I also, like he was talking about red flags, got red flags with this company. So I'm not quite sure if it's a fit for me, because we were kind of talking about like potentially an offer, but I just, yeah. So what's your recommendation there? Yeah.
Well, what's the red flag?
Just requiring too much for one thing, requiring too much. Like I had to build a project for them, and I think I put like 30 hours of my time, which is unpaid, into this project. So there was that. I provided 3 references for them, but then he was like, I don't know, when I had the meeting with one of the founders, he was asking me for more. Oh, about this other manager I worked with. Oh, what's his name? Can I get his? I don't know. Like I just felt it was too much, like what they were asking for.
Yeah.
The other thing too, because they told me they don't like, there's no work-life balance, which doesn't suit me as well because I'm a mom.
Okay.
But then
so why are you
sometimes,
continuing? You're just continuing the conversations because they responded to you.
yeah, because I felt, I don't know, because some people are like, oh, I guess part of me initially was like,
it's not worth
that,
it.
yeah, like I don't want to say like desperate, but sometimes you feel like desperate, like,
I
oh,
get
I should
it.
just pick the first job. But then I also
I've
have to Go ahead.
taken many first jobs, and they were
Yeah.
never like a great opportunity. They were like crappy to so-so. And I did that for 10 years. And then I took a 6-month break from working. So that wasn't a great way to learn how to choose jobs. So if you see red flags, even in the first interview, you can ask very specific questions to vet companies based on the boundaries you have and the values you have. Like, great, when was the last time you took time off? How long did you take time off for? Do you have any other moms in your company? No? Do you have like all white men or something?
It
Why
is.
is
It's
that?
all that. No moms and all, amen.
No, then they're wasting your time, they're wasting their own time. They're basically completely irresponsible on all fronts.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
would just cut off conversation, say, appreciate the opportunity. This isn't a good fit.
Okay. Okay. And so just to kind of feel strong in like the skills that you have, because sometimes, I don't know, people are like, oh, the market is bad, so it's better to take something than nothing. So that's what I sometimes worry. And I have had, yeah, some other potential opportunities, but it just didn't feel like a match. So, but you're like, no, just hold out for the right one.
I mean, what are you going to do? Take it and then suffer and then leave it? Like,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is going to happen?
Yeah.
And they
No.
probably aren't even going to hire. They're just going to spin their wheels because they're people that don't know what they want, apparently. Because no company that wants to hire does what is it, like, spends time talking to your referrals or whatever. What is that? Yeah, in tech, like, that's not common. Like, yes, there are companies that do that, but honestly, tech is not the industry where it's more common. It's more common in other industries like law, medicine, like other things, like life and death kind of stuff. But in tech, if you want to hire someone, you hire them.
Okay. Yeah. Like, and part of it too, because as you know, I have an accounting background. So I was going for fintech companies and they have a CPA as well. So it seems for me like, I'm like, maybe I don't go for the accountants because they always seem to be the troublemakers for me. They're just start asking me accounting things and unrelated to, like, I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, maybe they're not a good match for now. Maybe there are some companies down the line that are like accounting tech or something that appreciate your background, but are not going to take you for free labor. Like, if they start acting like a friend that wants free advice, that's not someone you want to work for.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, value your time and set some boundaries even within the job search.
Amazing. Does anyone have any other questions? Those were some amazing questions today, by the way. Actually, maybe I have a question about your the program that you actually run. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about your 12-week career launch and maybe about, who might be the best candidates and if people are interested, how they can connect with you and stuff like that?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. First of all, again, thank you everyone for the questions, and thank you, Chris, for facilitating. So the 12-week career launch is basically a program for career changers that want to accelerate their job search. It's basically 3 to 4 months of a lot of focus and tracking and optimizing your job search. So you train on how to use the networking approaches we talked to today. You get one-on-one coaching that is personalized to wherever you need extra support. You get interview prep, negotiation support. You definitely get a lot of training around like mindset and understanding how to like vet the right companies and have more targeted outreach. And then even vet the companies during the interview process, because you could be talking to 3 different companies and one could be wasting your time. Like, why spend your energy there? So by having this more like targeted support, you accelerate the process and you ensure your commitment. You basically actually do the job because you kind of paid for it. So you're committing to doing what you want to do. So you work with me and I have a small team that helps me. And then we make sure that you get your job search going and build momentum. And if you want to explore working with me on this, you can reach me on LinkedIn and ask me for more details.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I've seen a lot of your like success stories on your LinkedIn and things like that. So yeah. Would you work with, because I think most of us here in this group we're all based in Canada, or most of us. Have you worked with Canadian clients, or are you open to working with Canadian clients as well?
Yeah, I have clients across the US and Canada. So it basically is a very similar process. I mean, this process works everywhere. It's basically how to talk to people online using LinkedIn. But in Canada, in the US, that's where most of my clients are. So I have a couple of clients in Canada and a lot of them are in the US. The US market is definitely a lot more crowded than Canadian. So at least in your case, you have slightly less people applying for each role. So yeah, I work with people from both areas.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we're gonna close out. I'm gonna do a conclusion, but before that, if there's any other burning questions, this is your time. I'm gonna do and then I'm gonna close out. Lisa, you have a question? I think I see your hand. Yeah.
Actually, I have a quick question. Because I'm a dual citizen, so I'm first from the United States, and I'm also a citizen of Canada. And so I wondered, Anna, if you have those kinds of clients, like people who live in Canada, they're looking for jobs in the US, that kind of thing. So
that's great. So you can basically apply to both, and some companies don't really care where you're from. I would just not write your address or phone number on your application so people don't assume one or the other. They can definitely see where you're from, like in your LinkedIn profile. But you want to use networking in order to reach out and tell them that you are eligible to work in the States or Canada, depending on what company you're applying for. But yeah, just don't make the location obvious unless you're doing an outreach campaign to just Canadian companies or just US, then maybe you can add that into your resume. But otherwise, apply to everywhere and reach out and kind of find out information about it.
Awesome. All right. So I think we're going to close out for tonight. Thank you so much to Anna for your honestly invaluable wisdom and the insight. Thanks for sharing the slides as well. And Nansa, if you can plug the LinkedIn sheet again. I think some people, not everybody got to fill it out. So on the Google Sheets, we were sharing everybody's LinkedIn, including Anna, so you can connect with her. So I think Nansa's going to get that to you shortly. Yep, it's right there. So if you just open up that Google Sheets, and you should be able to put in your LinkedIn's there. And just I'm also plugging our Slack group. So we have events like this from time to time. If you want to learn more and connect with our community or find out about future events, that is the Slack group, best place to learn more about that. And I post and we post these events on LinkedIn as well. So if you just follow me, then you'll be able to figure out if we have any future events. We do have a virtual event coming up, another one, but that's not for another month or so. We're doing a part 2 of I Made It Through This Hellscape called Job Search Panel on August 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with 3 panelists, Vanessa Vun, Louis Knoll, and our very own Sammy Lamb. So I'll be sharing that in the coming weeks. So yeah, I think that is all for tonight. If anybody wants to stick around for like an informal networking session, sorry, the
Slack link.
Slack link. Oh, is that not working? Let me reshare it. Uh-oh, wonder why. But anyways, if yeah, maybe Sammy shared the right one. Yeah, if anyone wants to stick around just to chat, I think I'm gonna leave this open for like another, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or so. But otherwise, I'm gonna stop the recording at this point.